بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا. صدق الله العظيم. So I want to welcome everyone for this very important event this evening. By the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the hard work of the team members of the Quran Academy and the resident scholars, alhamdulillah, we have decided and have gathered here to address a very, very important topic. The topic pertaining to the practices of safe digital behavior. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressing to you and I, Allah says, "O believers, be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time, and live your life in such a manner that once you are leaving this world, leave with iman. وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ." And the formula to holding on to iman and to Islam is the next verse where Allah says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا. Hold on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala together. وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. And do not divide amongst each other. So in this very challenging world that we are living in right now, the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here refers to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And at the same time, Jami'a refers to the Jamaatul Muslimin, the believers, Muslim men and women. In our current times, there are challenges that another place in the Quran Allah says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلِ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you're not aware of a matter, right? And the matter pertaining to deen, Islam, in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam have mentioned regarding the ulama, the scholars of deen, who are the warasatul anbiya, the inheritors of the prophets, the heirs of the prophets, that they have understood the Quran and hadith. But the reality is, and obviously this gathering is for the parents, the reality of the matter is we are living in such an unpredictable, yet at the same time scary world, where conversations are hyper conversations that's happening these days. Decisions that our youth and our children and people are making with that unreal world are so real because the conversations and the visions and the views may not be real, but the decisions are real. To such an extent that with that hyper unreal conversations, there have been cases where people have even taken their own lives without meeting anyone, just through interactions on the social world. People have made decisions that have consequences for them and their families, not just in this world, but also in hereafter. So it's very important that we understand the challenge that we have right now. And while we understand the problem, it's also important that we identify the solutions for that problem. That's why وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا comes, that hold on and come together as one ummah, as one community, as one family, as Muslim family that we are, to identify the problem and to address the issue, inshallah. With that being said, the first topic that we will be addressing today will be addressing the direct impact on a person's life with the social media, addressing the misperception of the normal lifestyle and how the social media world have distorted that reality. When people are looking at things online or on their phones, and how that is far away from what the reality is, and how that's impacting a person's self-esteem, right? And their distortion of vision that they see and the misrepresentation of a normal life. Normal life, even relationships for that matter. And that is why we are seeing the repercussions of that. The marriages right now, subhanAllah, marriages are happening just like how they were happening 50, 100 years ago. But at the same time, the problems of marriages are skyrocketing right now as it was a century ago. Divorces, subhanAllah, perhaps even more divorces in a year than marriages that are happening. And some way or the other, it's directly or indirectly connected to this behavior. So inshallah, so for addressing that topic, we have someone who is definitely not a stranger to ISB, our very own respected Dr. Yunus. And Dr. Yunus, mashallah, who is a child psychiatrist by profession. He works at Johns Hopkins Hospital in the child psychiatry department. At the same time, he also is a medical director at the Catholic Charities for Mental Health program. He has been serving as our volunteer doctor at ISB Clinic for a number of years. And I know for sure by fact because I have referred quite a few members of our community and children, and he has helped hundreds and thousands of Muslim kids as well and families in the field that he's expert in, mashallah, that is in child psychiatry. I make dua that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him immensely and allow his khair and barakah to benefit the ummah at large. At the same time, inshallah, he'll be addressing on this topic. Please, let's listen to him very attentively. Jazakumullah khair for being here.
Thank you for your generosity. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik wa sallam. I understand there are more people online watching, so I'm a little happy about that. The problem is, when the crowd is thin, I don't get excited. And there's another problem. My wife is also sitting in the audience. So the jokes are going to be a little different. I usually pick on my wife in her absence, but now that she's here, I'll have to pick on somebody. But there are no people to pick here. They're all online. So let's start this lecture with a question, like people are here. I'm sure all of you have a social media account, right? Inactive. You inactivated social media account. Yes. So let's talk about what is social media. Some people might have no idea what social media is. So when I say social media is any media that you stream your views on or you publish your views on socially to show it to others socially. That is what is social media. So there are platforms. Platform simply means they're companies who host you for a few seconds and they make a little profit out of you. That is all is social media. So one of the first social media was like Yahoo. I'm chewing something, I'm sorry. Yahoo, if I remember right, that was the first social media because it was a website and they hosted you and they gave you an account and you could blog or you can communicate with other people online or on phone. The first time I did that was in 1997. So social media is very old. And then came along many other things. And now majority of those platforms have shifted from the computers to your smartphones. So now social media is very different. It's not Yahoo or Google or those platforms anymore. When I say social media, it's like Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram or Twitter. Those are considered social media. There are many other, like WhatsApp. There's something called Kick. Do you guys know what Kick is? It's actually going out of fashion now to be on Kick. Kick is you say something and it goes blank within like 2 seconds or 5 seconds. So you see, it's like speaking. You type something. Once the other person reads it, it's gone. And it's real time. Now, Snapchat is similar, but Snapchat, you can still see it for 30 seconds. Kick, you don't see it. Once the person has read it, it's gone. So other person has to be very fast too. Aye, Jamil bhai. Walaikum salam. So that's Kick. There are many other things. Now, WhatsApp is like durable. Unless you turn off your the messages, it keeps on accumulating. So those are what we call as social media. So today we are not talking about internet like for instance, if you're watching TV on the phone, we're not talking about that today. If you're watching Netflix on your phone or on TV, we're not talking about that today. Does it make sense? I just want to be clear, what is social media? Because those things are different. We'll come to that in a second. We're going to deal with that, but a little later. So let's first talk about social media. So I hope we understand what we have described by social media, right? It's a company which gives you access to their platform for a few seconds at a time, for free most of the time, and then publish that to your people whom you want to show off. That is exactly social media. You can type things, you can forward pictures, still pictures, or you can forward videos. Like YouTube Short or YouTube is also social media. There's a new entrant, what's it called? Discord? Okay. What's the other called? 30 seconds videos? TikTok. Sorry.
This is the parents and older people.
Yeah, TikTok.
Kids are upstairs.
Upstairs. They'll know more. So that's what we're talking about. I'll tell you why I'm trying to make a distinction. As you can see, do you know how many people are actually on social media? Anybody? Take a wild guess. Let's talk about US first. You can actually see here, right? 300 million. The thing is, look at your children's use of social media. Look at this slide. I'm hoping that this is the slide, right? Yeah. So to your right, there's a comparison between 2012 and 2018. So this slide is actually dated, right? But you can get the idea how every few years the number is going up. So you see that the orange line, which says your teenagers from 13 years onwards, 16% of them are constantly on social media. Any social media, doesn't matter what it is. And then 27% of them, they're checking every hour. And then the rest of them are checking at least once a day or several times a day. So in fact, they are glued to their phone, not doing anything else, not calling anybody or not texting anybody. They are actually glued to social media. We'll come to more discussion why that is important, why I'm pressing on that. And then see. So when I was growing up in this country, Facebook became the first ubiquitous social media. And then, came other things. But look at now. Who's watching, who's using Facebook, who's using Twitter, who's using Instagram, and who's using Snapchat? Very few of your teenagers are on Facebook. Even though 2 billion people use Facebook every day, very few of them are actually teenagers. Can you imagine 2 billion people? They have 2 billion eyeballs glued to Facebook on a daily basis all over the world. And I'm sure 700 million are in India. There are much fewer in the United States. But even then, teenagers don't prefer Facebook. Maybe it's old, or maybe all of their parents are on Facebook, so they don't want to be visible, right? And then Instagram. You know what Instagram is, right? It's the second most popular amongst teenagers. The most popular is Snapchat. The thing which I mentioned, Kick. If you go to inner city Baltimore, every kid is on Kick. Every kid in inner city Baltimore is on Kick, whether he's Hispanic, black, white, Indian, Asian. Every kid is on Kick. So there are some things like that, The city kids use certain other things. The suburban kids keep something else. This Snapchat is a suburban phenomenon. Why do they use Snapchat? First of all, they're influencers. You know what influencers are for oldies like me? Influencers are people, who tell you what to use. They're fashionable. They speak the lingo. They go into fashion. and they interview big people big people, not like like Biden or something. It's like, the singers and those kind of people. Even Beyonce is not hip anymore. She's like for people who's 40s. I'm sure a lot of people don't even know what Beyonce is, right? So Snapchat, right? Those are the people using Snapchat. Now look at that. How the numbers have increased over years. So they're comparing from 2015 to 2019. The numbers are going up. Instagram numbers have gone up. Snapchat, the numbers have started to come down. The reason kids use Snapchat because, as I said, the message is deleted within 30 seconds. Look at this. I was really surprised when I started researching on this a few weeks ago. Can you understand this slide? Twitter users, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. What is surprising here? More females in general on social media. Do you see that? I was surprised. I had to do some research to dig and find out why. You see that? Twitter, 82% females and only 38% males. LinkedIn, more females. Facebook, more females. Instagram, just by a smidge, men are higher. Snapchat, way off their males. Can anybody think why? That is possible, but not 82%, right? Compared to 38%. So there's some other phenomena going on. More women are home, that's possible. That's possible. Men, do you want to speak for yourself? No, nobody wants to speak. Okay, more fashion, more shopping and all. Yes. That's a possibility. Yes, Sister Vajiha. Okay. Attention. I never thought about this, but yeah. Yes, brother. Walaikum salam. We're coming there. Yes, we're coming there. That's a good point. Yes. Possible. So the main reason, I don't know what the main reason is, but one of the papers, I forgot to bring the paper, it's online here, says that men tend to be on video games more than women. So if you compare this, if you reverse this slide for video games, it'll be opposite. More men are playing video games than women. So I guess they're busy on video games. And men are more on chatting social media rather than sharing social media. Does it make sense? Like Facebook is, you share. Similarly, LinkedIn share. Twitter, you're just constantly sharing your views. So that's one of the reasons. So these are all theories. Nothing has been. Yes?
Women like to share. Men are not really sharing species. They just do things together. This is how they bond. And that doesn't happen on social media. It happens on online games. I think the Snapchat numbers are crooked. They're not right.
You could be right. But remember, men also don't want their messages lingering on. So I guess that's the reason they're higher. Okay. So there's something called internet addiction. Have you guys heard of that? No, internet addiction is if you have a computer or a smartphone, you are online trying to find something or another to watch or to see or talk. That's called internet. And there's addiction. Addiction is if you spend more time on internet than necessary, number one, and you spend more time not fulfilling your other duties, or if you don't use it, you feel its absence and you feel discomfort. And this should be going on for at least 6 months. So that's what is called, that's the definition in general of addiction. So now people are having internet addiction. Actually, this is an older term. We have switched it to social media addiction because we are realizing that internet addiction is nothing but social media addiction. And it is, the reason we get addicted is either we feel high on it, or somebody manipulates your mind, or you can't live without it. Like a lot of people get addicted to drugs in the beginning. Why? Because they feel high. And then they get addicted. They remain addicted. Why? Not because they're getting the high, because they're getting high a small amount of time, because getting off of it becomes really problematic. All those can be applied to social media. Now, manipulation of the brain is not new. How many of you are in philosophy? Have you guys heard of Plato's cave? This is like, so let's skip it. If you really want to talk about it, I'll do that. Hey, little fella, come here. There are more ladies. Can you distribute it to ladies and give one to your dad? Give it to ladies. One on this side and one this side. Here, take this too. No, take them out. It's a book. Play with it. Let's see how many people. Give one to Mr. Sister Manas. Give one to her. And give one at the back. Play with it and tell me what it is. Yeah, this row. Go ahead. Do you know what that is? Flip book. What do you observe? Tell me what you observe.
Flip book tells you a story. It's a visual story.
It's a visual story. It's actually, that's how the idea of movies came around. Right? The faster you move those pages, the better the movie. Or else you don't feel it's actually nothing but stills. Right? This is what the basis of movies are. In movies, every still frame needs to move minimum 16 times per second for you to get a movie feeling. It gets better if you make it 32 times. So it's always in the multiples of 16. So you have to trick your brain that it's not a still. And the trick happens starting at 16 times per second. You calculate that. You're an engineer. I can't calculate that. But 16 is the magic number. You double it up, it becomes more better. You triple it up, it becomes more better. If it's an action movie, you at least have to have 400 stills per second. It's an action movie, right? If it's a video game, can anybody imagine how many stills? So usually a video game is good if it is around 1,000 stills per second. Why am I stressing so much? The reason is the brain. So every time you see a movie, or if you see a show, or if you see anything that you like, there are certain areas of the brain that light up. These are the areas of the brain that are lighting up. These are too complicated. Now this is one, dopamine pathway. Do you guys know dopamine pathway, right? Dopamine pathway is the pleasure hormone. And there is a center in the brain, they're complicated, like the limbic system, but the main area is nucleus accumbens and amygdala. Those are the two important things. So they light up. So that is taken up by these social media companies. Now this is Facebook. Like say you take a selfie, or you take a photograph, or a woman makes good makeup on her face and takes a picture and posts it. And people look at it. And people look at it and they immediately have some reaction to it. And they either like it or dislike it. If they like it, they give you a thumbs up or a heart or something like that. And you see that. The other person who posted sees that. And when they see that liking thing, dopamine pathway is stimulated. And you get small amount of pleasure. Small amount, very small amount of pleasure. Dopamine is a pleasure pathway. Serotonin, I'm sure you've heard of it, serotonin. Serotonin is a satiating pathway. That means it calms you down. Dopamine excites you. So these likes are like getting a hit. There's no difference between getting a crack hit and this Facebook like hit. Now, crack gives you 100,000 time hit, and the Facebook like gets you maybe 10. So there's a difference. But if you add up 100 likes, you get as high as though you're on crack or heroin or imagine weed or something like that. So this is what the social media is trying to get your attention in your dopamine pathway. They want to give you a small rush. Everybody wants to be liked. Is there anybody who wants to be disliked? Nobody wants to be disliked. वो एक हमारे तेलुगु में एक वो है, I don't know, there are not many Telugus. You understand, right? कव्वे का बच्चा गव्वे को प्यारा. A crow's ling is dearer to the crow, right? So everybody likes their own. Why do people take selfies? Because they think they're the best person in the world. You can think the other person is ugly, but that person thinks he's the best person. So that's what the rush is. Now, social media is actually depending on that. They're making use of that, and they're manipulating their brain. Their whole idea is to manipulate your brain to keep on watching their media. They keep on watching their media. That's the reason it is very hard to get off social media. Not because you like it, it's because they are manipulating your brains. And they know how to manipulate your brains. Because remember, they're hosting you for free. They're not hosting you free. They're hosting you because they get all your data and then start manipulating you. So I found this slide. This is very interesting. 101 on social media post contents. To increase customer engagement and interaction. The whole idea for social media is to get your eyeballs glued to their platform. That's the whole thing. No other way. You're keeping time, right? Tell me half hour. So the few things I'm going to talk about is filter bubbles, echo chambers, selective sharing, body image issues, political polarization, mental health, that's the most important thing, and misinformation. I just want to mention about distorted reality. How many of you feel you look good? Tell me. I feel I look good, right? I don't know if you know, I don't know about yourself, but I feel I look good. All of us feel that way, right? Yeah. All of us feel we look good. I'm not going to make that joke. I had a joke ready for that, but she appeared, so I can't make that joke. So that also gives us distorted reality. When we start thinking that other people also like us because they're liking our media shows and all that, it gives us a boost, like, I'm something because so many people like me. On the other hand, the other thing also works the reverse way too. If people start giving you no likes or thumbs down, then you start feeling down. And this does a number on your mental health, causing anxiety, depression, aggression. We'll come to that. And sometimes we know what is on social media is bogus. It's not true. But our brain does not believe it. Because that is the manipulation that the companies are trying to do. Even though you don't believe it, it makes you believe that it is right. That's what comes into what we call as bubbles. We live in our bubbles. Even in general, we live with, we have friends. If you're a Bengali, you're going to be with another Bengali. If you're a Hyderabadi, you're going to be, talk about biryani all the time. And Irani chai, and we hang out with those kind of people. And if somebody else comes in, we change our language. Hyderabad is, we speak very different. Whenever a Pakistani or a North Indian comes in, our language gets different. And after 5-10 minutes, our mouth starts aching. Because we're sick of talking straight. So that's very common, right? So we all are in bubbles. But in social media, these bubbles are very strong because those companies don't want you to go out of those bubbles. So they manipulate your brains into thinking that you cannot go out. Whatever bubble we are in, we're fine. Everybody else is not right. Look at this slide and tell me what channel is this from? Now, it says Philly.com. That has been manipulated. But tell me what is the channel. Go ahead. CNN. Okay. You can tell by the, no, not font, by the captions. Both women are wearing white dresses. One is a Republican, another is a Democrat. But you can see Melania Trump's RNC fashion a scary statement, even though she's wearing a white dress. Now, Hillary is also wearing a white dress, some suit or something. But see the difference, looks presidential. The other one is scary. This one is presidential. So what, more than likely MSNBC or maybe CNN, right? So if you can just look at your own bubble, you will know where is your leaning. I gave you a very simple example. Imagine this is sexualized. Imagine this is sexualized. What will happen? We, just by looking at this, can figure out which TV program or which channel is broadcasting this. Now, manipulate it further, and you can find out where is this coming from. So it is very predictable because those bubbles become so sticky that if we think anybody who's outside that bubble, there's something wrong with them. Because the bubbles want us to believe that way. Now, echo chambers. I think if you had come to my last lecture, I had talked about echo chambers. Echo chambers are, I have just 14 minutes? Okay. So echo chambers are, very similar to bubbles, but is a little the next way. Echo chamber is like-minded people telling you like things. And the biggest difference between echo chambers and bubbles is we talk bad about others all the time. And we like each other. So not much of a difference. And then, this becomes polarized, as you can see. Now, this is what social media distorts reality, right? The biggest thing the social media does is othering. Do you understand what othering is? Othering is we are holier than everybody else, and others are outside and not to be trusted. This is the biggest thing that social media does. Fortunately or unfortunately, we do this in schools all the time. When your kids fight, there's a clique, and everybody is the other. But when it comes to social media, now there's not many people to manipulate. There are only 6-7 people in the class to manipulate that you are the best and everybody else is other. But in social media, millions of people are supporting you and othering others. And that's where these extreme emotions come in. And you're flooded with information. Have you heard of alternate facts? This is what it is. Do you understand what alternate facts are? Those are Trump facts. If you don't agree with a fact, then you can make it into a selective sharing. See, we all do this. What is the meaning of selective sharing? I am going to share only the best that I can present. If I'm having a bad hair day, I'm not going to post my selfie. Right? I'm just giving an example to myself. I'm not talking about ladies. There's so many other bad days. So what happens? And we always hide things. One parent shares something, the other parent hides some things. You can see in this slide, I've deliberately deleted that, blacked it out. It is as easy as that. And you can also embarrass your own children or embarrass others. Body image issues are very common, right? You see all muscular men, and then you feel, oh my God, I don't even have biceps. Women, it's a whole different story. There are also a lot of fake things. You guys know that, right? Fake news. The biggest fake was the last president, right? What's the solution for all these things? I'm just saying what's the solution for fake news, but I'm saying, what do we do? Media literacy is extremely important. If you don't have media literacy, there's another slide for that. This is something important.
See, when media literacy is, I mean, it depends where you're looking at, right? If you already
I'll come to that in a second. Good question. I just said it in passing. I'm going to come to that. I was not expecting children, so I had some explicit material here.
Actually, I request, this is actually designed for the parents only, and there is a program upstairs for children. I'll appreciate it, the kids can go and show.
Can you go upstairs, buddy? There's actually a program same like this. I'm going to present more interesting slides there. So a while ago, when my son was young, he's here in the audience. He's upstairs, I guess. So he was sitting with me. He's here. He was sitting with me. And he was on his phone or laptop, I don't know. And then, we were just scrolling, and suddenly an explicit image came up. And I know he wasn't looking for it. He was, I think, about 12, 13 then. So this is called phishing, right? You know that, right? Phishing. So they knew his age. He's the right candidate, 13. And they presented a explicit material. Now, if he clicks on it, then they know what he's interested in. So whether he likes it or not, he'll be bombarded with those messages. That make sense? So what is that? Nothing but porn, right? They get you sensitized or desensitized to that. And that is the whole function of media companies. There's good research which says that if you're exposed to sexually explicit material, there are X, Y, and Z changes that are happening in your brain. Remember, puberty and then post-puberty, there are X number of things that need to happen before you actually start understanding what sexual relations are. Yes, you may reach puberty at age 13, but you do not know the reality of sexual relations. But if that is presented to you at an earlier age than you're ready, then there are some repercussions. What are the repercussions? One is aggression. In a male child, exposure to porn leads to aggression. Aggression in language, aggression in posture, aggression actually fighting. In behavior. In female children, it leads to isolation, depression, and anxiety. So it has an opposite effect. They tend to isolate because for some reason similar hormones have different effect on women or female minds than compared to male minds. So if your child suddenly starts becoming aggressive, check his history. Now, one of the biggest things porn does to your child is distorts the reality of human body. Because most of the videos and photographs are very demeaning, mostly to women, but also men. More than a third of 13 to 14-year-olds have already watched porn. This may come as a surprising to you. These children are not going looking for porn. this is being presented to them on social media innocuously. If they do the mistake of clicking just once, it creates a algorithm for them. Does it make sense? See, early exposure causes aggression, I told you. It also causes dysfunctional body image. Most of the children who've been exposed to porn at an early age tend to have low self-esteem. Because, what is shown in porn, remember the best selfie we put forward, right? The same thing happens in those material too. Those are not real. You take 100 selfies to choose one to post. But to a young boy or a girl, mostly it's boys, imagine the effect it's having is like, oh, there's something wrong with me. So inadequacy spreads.
Question, I'm going to ask more questions. We also have limited time. Does that aggression occurs in adults as well?
Yes, it does. Actually, there are lots of studies in adults that aggression is more common in adults watching porn compared to children. And most of this aggression is directed towards women. And early exposure material, it also causes anxiety and depression systems. Now we're coming to mental health. There is a good research which says that if you are exposed to social media, now we know what social media is, for more than 3 hours, for 6 weeks, you will meet, majority of those people will meet criteria for major depressive disorder. 3 hours per day for 6 weeks. Majority of those college students who were in the trial met criteria for major depressive disorder. That means they're depressed to the extent their life is getting affected. The depression due to social media is a little different than regular depression. Due to social media, depression causes more sleeplessness, more irritability, exhaustion, and headaches, and increased appetite. So there's a little difference, slight difference in the typical depression and due to overuse of social media. And there's another thing, in children that I hear this all the time. Do you know what FOMO is? We actually all know this, fear of missing out. All kids do this. When they're playing something, you ask them to do something, it's like, no, I don't want to do that. He's going there, I need to go. This fear of missing out is common. But fear of missing out in social media is multiplied by 1,000 times. Because why? There's so much going on in a second compared to actual life. In actual life, you miss something if you're not in the game, right? But if you're on social media, remember the small dopamine reactions you're getting, those are accumulating into a hit of crack cocaine. That's the reason fear of missing out is much higher in children, and that causes intense anxiety. Even though the anxiety is short-lived, but it kind of accumulates. Remember, if you prick somebody with one small pin, yeah, it hurts for some time. If you imagine if you do that 100 times, it hurts a lot more. It also gets infected. That's what exactly is social media. It's not one pin. It is one pin into 1,000 times. So this is what I was saying, that there is something different with social media, depression secondary to social media. A lot of loneliness. First thing that happens if you're addicted to social media is you lose your friends. You don't care about your friends because the dopamine that you were getting because of your friends talking, interacting, you're getting online now, so you don't need friends. Or exercise. Exercise also gives you dopamine. I have only 3 minutes. So I want to tell you one thing. If you can take this one message out of this, is see this. 1 in 17 users with social media thoughts trace their desire to kill themselves to Instagram. Why Instagram is the reason I picked this slide is because Instagram is very popular amongst children and teenagers. You can generalize to any other social media. But imagine this. You want to kill yourself. And that killing yourself is originating 1 in 17 times from a Instagram account. Imagine if you're on multiple platforms. What is the incidence of depression, prevalence of depression, and why depression rates are going up? This is actually a research. Time spent on social media, you can predict the risk of depression is increased by 13% with each hour increase in your usage. 3 hours, if you increase by 1 hour, your depression rate of depression goes by 13%. So, and then this is dated. You see, the rates of depressions have been going up in teenagers and young adults. You can see 2005, 8.7%, 2014, 11.5. Now I don't know what it is. I didn't research that. Why? The only change that has happened in this whole time is social media. Digital well-being, now we come to that. I have 1 minute, 18 seconds. The thing is, it is very hard to do what we are asking to do by asking them digital literacy. Digital literacy is not learned in a day, it's a process. And that comes to what parents can do. Tell me how many of you have young children and have used a babysitter? 1, 2, right? Nobody else has baby, 3. What do you look for when you look for a babysitter? You talk to them, right? You get a reference, right? And how long does your child go to babysitter? A few hours, right? Right? How many hours is your child on social media? Have you interviewed Snapchat, Instagram? Why are we not doing it? We're more worried about a mundane babysitter who has
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
So, I just want us to understand, how much time we spend for a mundane babysitter, but we don't care about what children are watching on social media. And that's what the thing is. I don't know how many people listen to Ghamidi Sahab, Javed Ahmed Ghamidi. He says, you cannot be Abu Jahl and expect your children to become Umar and Abu Bakr Siddiq. So if you want your children to be Umar and Abu Bakr Siddiq, you have to become just like that. So what can parents do is, like, digital literacy comes from your parents or your guardians. When you want to introduce social media to them, sit down with them and watch social media with them. Introduce it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then talk about this in your daily conversation. That, hey, do not believe everything what is on social media. There's distortion in social media. Unless you make them literate about this lingo early in life, it is difficult once your brains have matured what to do. As Brother Sadat Hassan is saying, absolutely true. Once you are brain matured, And once you have wedded to your ways, it is very difficult to dislodge those habits. It has to happen very early in life. So this is what I want you to keep track. There are a lot of things out there that that can protect your children from internet, but all of them are outdated. The best thing is you got to talk to your children at an early age. Not talking like, oh, beta, come and sit down. Have an honest conversation. And always conversations happen when you get into the habit of talking to your children every day. And no question should be a question that you say, If you want your children to talk, learn to listen to them. If you start talking to them, then they will stop talking. Learn to listen to your children. We recently went on a trip, several families, and children were asked to talk. The moment children started talking, some of the parents started becoming defensive. If you become defensive, you lose your children. Listen to them. If you're not listening, they'll find somebody else who wants to listen to them. And there are always unsavory characters. And where do they go? They go on social media to their echo chambers. They're the bubbles. This is where they go, brothers. If you don't listen to them, they go somewhere else. Thank you.
Jazakumullah khair, Dr. Yunus. Inshallah, we'll break up for salah. We'll come back.
Allahu Akbar,
and then we'll continue
Allahu
the program.
Akbar,
Jazakumullah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala al-falah. Qad qamatis salah. Qad qamatis salah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
لا إله إلا الله استووا اعتدلوا سووا صفوفكم وسدوا الخلل. Please straighten the rows. Please turn off your cell phones and fill in the gaps. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين والسماء بنيناها بأيد وإنا لموسعون والأرض فرشناها فنعم الماهدون ومن كل شيء خلقنا زوجين لعلكم تذكرون ففروا إلى الله إني لكم منه نذير مبين ولا تجعلوا مع الله إلها آخر إني لكم منه نذير مبين كذلك ما أتى الذين من قبلهم من رسول إلا قالوا ساحر أو مجنون أتواصوا به بل هم قوم طاغون فتول عنهم فما أنت بملوم وذكر فإن الذكر تنفع المؤمنين وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون ما أريد منهم من رزق وما أريد أن يطعمون إن الله هو الرزاق ذو القوة المتين فإن للذين ظلموا ذنوبا مثل ذنوب أصحابهم فلا يستعجلون فويل للذين كفروا من يومهم الذي يوعدون الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. How many of you guys are parents here? Can you raise your hand? Parents? Raise your hands. MashaAllah, a lot of parents. So if you know that there is a program here about digital behavior, right? How many of you know what TikTok is? Raise your hand. How many of you know what TikTok is? Raise your hand. Not many? Discord? Just a few. That's the problem. One of the things is that the older generation is very disconnected from the modern applications that are being in use and what the youth are actually doing online. So this is why we hosted this program today for parents, which is called, I can't remember the exact name, but digital behavior, something about it. But inshallah, after the remaining sunnah, we'll be continuing in the Quran Academy wing. So I would urge all the parents in attendance, brothers and sisters, to please come to the Quran Academy wing on the second floor. And inshallah, it will be very beneficial. Jazakallah khair.
Do you have any questions, guys? No? I guess I was answering while going. Well, the thing is, you'll have to set your foot down. Once they're 18, 20, you can't do anything. It's below that time. Set a time, I would say, see, the thing is, the problem is the phones, the current phones, they work on pixels. Do you know what pixels are? Your children know, right? These phones, they have actually pixels. So there is no rays here. They're actually cells of color that are actually splintering when the color is appearing. So there are trillions and trillions of pixels in your phone. Until it is depleted, it'll take like a few decades. So it mimics sunlight. Sunlight also, the atoms have to blast open for it to produce light. Same thing happens with these pixels. So it mimics sunlight. So that's the reason it causes sleep problems. So I would say for younger children, take your phones or any electronic devices 2 hours before they go to bed. Set your foot down. Initially, they'll throw temper tantrums. But then when you mean business, they'll do it. Any other questions? Yes. What's up? It is better they know that you don't trust them. See, the thing is, the best part of supervision is not constant supervision. Constant supervision is not the best part of supervision. Your supervision should be intermittent, unsuspecting. Then the supervision works better. You'll develop some trust. Initially, when they're between 10 and 13, there's nothing called sitting alone on computer or phone. They should be sitting beside you. Another thing, the best thing you can do is model it for them. Majority of the parents do not model. It's like a smoking dad saying, smoking is bad, man, don't do it. I'm already addicted. Don't do it. Right? Your child is not going to listen to you. He's going to see you what you do and do it. So please model your social media use for them. And don't become a smoker telling your child not to smoke. It'll never happen. If you're a smoker, your child will smoke. Not sooner, if not sooner, later. I'll tell you a story. There's a friend of mine. The 4 brothers are living in the same household. The joint families in India. 2 of the brothers smoke, and 2 of the brothers don't smoke. Now, all their children are grown. The 2 of the brothers who used to smoke, all their children smoke. And the 2 of the brothers who didn't used to smoke, their children don't smoke. So the influence of parents' attitude and parents' modeling is that important.
Jazakumullah khair. This reminds me of one very famous saying. As parents, if we say this, do what I tell you to do and don't do what I do, never works. So they are definitely modeling us. Before I let go, Dr. Yunus, there's another question online. What can we do to encourage our kids to spend less time on their phone?
So there is actually a slide where we need to teach them balancing. If you keep your children busy away from home, and if you are involved in their lives and keep them busy outside of home, I think the chances that your children are going to be online are lower. And that needs to start early in life, not later in life. Keep your children busy early in life. They get used to it. They know what it is. There are a lot of children that I treat people. These children don't know what is outside. Their parents never go outside. They get around, what is family get together for them? They all sit around one table and watch YouTube videos. That is family meeting for them. So encourage outside behavior. Remember the little dopamine rush that I was telling you about? Exercise gives you a similar rush. Playing ball also gives you similar rush. Believe me, it's exactly the same. There are studies where children were kept outside busy playing ball compared to children who were inside watching social media. And then they measured there through the MRI and the blood flow to the nucleus accumbens. There's no difference between children who were exercising outside and playing ball and children who were playing on video games or social media. It is so important to keep them busy if you really want them not to get addicted to social media. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yunus. The second program is waiting for you upstairs for the youth, inshallah. And may Allah reward you. There was so much to be said. I think the part of our reason for this topic was to address the issue. And for parents especially, this is a focus group. This is a focused parents group. For us to first understand the challenge. You cannot come up with solutions if you don't understand the challenge and the problem. With this, inshallah, I would like to call our next speaker, Sister Zariyat Abdullah. Inshallah, tafadali. Inshallah, come forward. The topic that we have next is very important and concerning, and Dr. Yunus has sort of alluded towards that, about the explicit content and its very dangerous impact and effect on the young minds. The topic is consumption of explicit content and its impact on growing minds, that are children. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to us as believers, but more specifically to the parents. And again, I just want to make sure that the people who are sitting in this room, and also those who are watching online, this is a focus group for parents. And we sit down with that purpose and understand the challenge from that lens, and then inshallah we'll get solutions as well. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to us as believers, but also us in this focus group as parents. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. So in this verse, the parents are there. Save yourself and your children from the fire of Jahannam. So there's a responsibility we have upon ourselves, that as we are preparing our Jannah, our entrance in Jannah, protecting ourselves from Jahannam, do the same for your children. Because in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ said, "Kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatihi." And each one of you is responsible shepherd, and you will be held accountable for those who you are responsible of. And we all, as I'm again speaking to us as parents, we are responsible towards our children. And we will be held accountable. We will be asked on Yawm al-Qiyamah. So that responsibility with the content that they are exposed to, or they have the opportunity to get their hands on, it's our responsibility to understand what this problem is, especially the explicit content, and also that its impact on the young children, inshallah. Sister Zaria, you could come over and we have a mic. Let me quickly introduce to our alumni of Ar-Rahmah School, mashallah, Sister Zariyat, who will be, as I mentioned, will be discussing the topic of explicit content, inshallah. Sister Zariyat is a licensed graduate professional and professional counselor. She has her interest and focus in mental health, and she received her master's of art in counseling psychology from Towson University. She is particularly interested in assisting individuals of all background with their day-to-day needs and helping them get over with life, mashallah. She's involved in a lot of community work as well, and mashallah, she enjoys working with families, assisting them from exploring their dynamics and to see their potentials, mashallah. So very, very happy for her to be here again, and actually it brings a great sense of joy to many of us in Ar-Rahmah. To know that someone who went to school here and who have graduated from our school and now, mashallah, is sitting here and addressing the community, and especially on this very, very, very important topic. Dr. Yunus mentioned about all the social media issues as he covered talking about the problems. Towards the end, he was rushing towards the time, but spoke briefly about the solutions to it. One of the problems that he identified, did not go in detail, was the pornography. and the explicit content. This topic, inshallah, again, I just want to make sure there's no kids here. We want to respect the topic and address it the way how it is. At the same time, I would allow, we also have Q&A at the end. So do keep your questions in mind. People who are watching online, please ask your questions, inshallah. I will entertain the question and answer session towards the end for our dear respected sisters. Jazakumullah khair. Tafadhali.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, I love hearing a chorus of a salam. It always brings my heart a lot of joy. So we're going to be talking, so the general topic is practicing safe digital behaviors, and my perspective of it is, inshallah, I'll be discussing the inappropriate content. So I'm going to mention it. I'm just going to call it, in general, inappropriate content. If there are children that are walking past, inshallah, they won't hear anything that they're not supposed to hear, anything that you haven't had a conversation with them about yet. Okay, perfect. So to start off, I know we're talking a lot about being in the digital age and some of the harms of being in the digital age. So this is just a quick agenda. We're going to do a check-in. We're going to talk about statistics and facts, inshallah. I'm going to give a real-life example of someone struggling with viewing inappropriate content and someone who was struggling with it for a lot of years, and kind of your perspective as parents and how this should be addressed, inshallah, what to do and what we'll call an emergency, right? So if your child is exposed to inappropriate content, what are the next steps? What should you do as a parent? Inshallah, we're going to practice, right? Because practice makes progress, and that's what we're here to do. And then I'm going to give you, inshallah, some takeaways. So what I'm going to do, I like my sessions to be interactive. I like us to talk. So to start off, we're going to ask a quick question. And this question is, let's see. What feelings do you as parents have when you think about your children using the internet? So you can either put your phone up, take a picture of the QR code, or you can raise your hand to answer the question. Yep. Oh. Let's start over, inshallah. Okay. You'll ask them? Okay, awesome. So let me see if this will work for me now, inshallah. Can you all see? All right, can you see this QR code now? Okay, so the question is, what feelings do you have when you think about your children using the internet? So you don't have to use your phone. You can raise your hand. You can answer the question, inshallah. But it'll give you the ability to type your answers up if you want anonymity, if you don't want to say the answers out loud, or if you just find this as an easier way to get the conversation started. So my goal here, inshallah, is to have a conversation starter with you all, because this is a very taboo topic in our families, our communities, and our cultures. So, inshallah, we'll be having great conversations today. Okay, so I see anxiety. I see someone said they feel anxious thinking about it. So anxiety seems to be the very prominent response. Does anyone have any other response other than anxiety? Fear. Okay. Nice, mashallah. I mean, not mashallah to the fear, but mashallah to the responses and the engagement. Jazakumullah khairan. Fear of the unknown, right? And so these are all very normal feelings for you to have as parents, because subhanAllah, these are people that you have reared their entire lives. They are literally a part of yourselves walking on this earth. So it's a scary thing to think about your children going online and being exposed to all types of content. So someone said they feel conscious and fear what their kids are using, anxiety because of what can be accessed. So the general knowledge is that there's a lot of things happening online that our kids have access to, right? So I had another question, but alhamdulillah, a lot of you answered this more specifically. So let's get into the content. So you guys are going to have to bear with me, inshallah, as I switch from tab to tab. Let's try this. I know they say young people should be great at using devices, but bear with me. All right. So I really want to have conversations with you all. And as parents, I want to know, why is the topic of inappropriate content or explicit content hard to talk about? Why is it hard to bring up to your kids? Yes. That's Yes, that's very important. So a lot of people's parenting comes from how they were parented. So if you weren't taught about a topic, if you were taught a topic was taboo, that's how a lot of people will parent, and that's how they'll teach their kids as well. Anything else? I like that one. That was very honest.
You mean, like, I feel like sometimes I may not have the answer, but you're asking.
Yes. Okay. So feeling like you don't have enough knowledge to give to your kids. And that's also a little bit scary too, because your kids look up to you so much because mommy and daddy have all the answers that we need, right? So that's another good one too. Not having enough knowledge or feeling fearful of not being able to give your kids that knowledge as well. Yes.
I think it's not hard to talk about, but I don't know, talking to my teenager, how do I approach so he understands it? They're the ones telling us, you don't know.
Yeah.
My friends are,
Mhm.
we do it in a different way.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to approach so he gets it.
Yeah, so I'm hearing that a lot of their involvement is with their friends, right? So there's been a switch with the older kids. So with the younger kids, it's like everything that my parent says, I believe. There's no need to not believe it. But with the older kids, you get to a point where they're like, are you sure you even know about this? This is like beyond your knowledge. And it could be a little bit condescending. Yes?
Also, being Muslim Americans, we're also split between a local culture, our Islamic values, and also our native culture,
Yes.
which could all be conflicting with each other.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's hard to find a balance with all of those things together and to also teach your kids about that balance too. Yes.
My experience is I have a 12-year-old daughter, and she avoids and she doesn't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to.
That's also another good important point, is that sometimes it's not you as parents that are avoiding it, but the kids that are avoiding it. It's embarrassing to talk about to your parents, like explicit online content. Sometimes kids don't want their parents to know that they know about stuff like that, right? So that's also another point of view.
So I want to have a different aspect of it. If you've gone through high school, you understand what I'm talking about. So peer pressure never changed. It's in a different form. So when I was going to high school, obviously these things weren't there, but the explicit content was always there.
Yep.
At least from my life time, maybe earlier, a couple more generations, it may not be there, but it were there. They were there. It just it got easier, and it's anonymous now, and that is the problem. So read the language of your child. You should be the best friend of your child, and if you are not able to do so, there are plenty of people out there who become best friends, and it's hard. Sometimes it's hard. They'll come. They're mood swings. Sometimes you have to take that mood swing, make some positive. You don't let it slide everything. You need to know who the parents. Still a living stay within the box. They are creative, so you have to become creative as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's the aspect of making sure that you keep a balance, right? I'm the parent, right? But you still support your child as they need to be supported through some of these issues. And so I really love the conversations that are coming out of this, and the vulnerability and the honesty too, because like I said, this is not a topic that we talk about in our communities, and alhamdulillah for starting these conversations too. So let's...
There was some response online.
Oh, okay.
There were a few responses to your question online. One person wrote down that I sometimes fear that I may not know the answer to the questions and that the kids may have, and I feel that that's too much information. Another person wrote down that we think that they will know more about it if we talk about it. Meaning, as you mentioned, like the more we open, it's like peeling the onion. Then there's some other responses in another language I cannot read. So again, to the viewers, if you can ask and comment, inshallah, in English, that will be helpful.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan, everyone online and everyone here too. So I just want to give like a quick definition. So this is a definition that's not explicit in any way, and you can also take this definition to describe to your kids without going into too much detail, and I'll also give you another form of explaining to your kids what inappropriate content or explicit content may entail. So inappropriate content refers to books, magazines, and movies that are designed to cause excitement by showing people that are not clothed or doing acts that we should not be watching. So that's an important aspect of being honest with your kids and telling them that this is something that you should not be looking at, that nobody should be looking at all, right? So it's educating them that not necessarily the act in and of itself is a wrong thing, because they need to understand further on in the future that this is how people come about in the world, right? So it's not to demonize any acts, but it's also to let them know that we shouldn't be looking at this. This is not for us to watch, and this is something that should be kept away from our eyes. And for them to be aware of all the different forms that it can come in. It can come in books, it can come in magazines, in movies. And as you mentioned before, it wasn't this accessible, but now it's in all these different forms, and it can be something as simple as having like the small devices. It can be on anyone's phone. So I'm gonna give you some statistics. And this one I think was mentioned online, but in different wording. Someone said, so one response might be about talking about these topics, that bringing up inappropriate content will only make my child more curious, right? So why would I bring this up to them if it's gonna make them more curious and make them go online and make them look up this stuff? Knowledge is power, right? So we all know this. It's a very basic thing in our deen. So discussing what inappropriate content is can really help equip your child to better handle situations where they can come across this inappropriate content. So I want to bring your attention to the statistic right here on the right. They did a survey with over 1,000 teenagers, and they asked them a whole bunch of questions. And one of the questions that I found was interesting was, how did you come across this explicit inappropriate content? Was it on purpose or was it accidental? And 58% of the teenagers, so that's over half, that's over like 500 of the teenagers in the study, mentioned that they came across this content by accident, right? So they could be playing a game on the phone, and I had these conversations with the kids upstairs, and they talked about this too, right? They talked about, like, I could be playing a game and something could pop up. Or they could be watching a YouTube video, and it could be embedded in the middle of the video. And I'm obviously not saying this to scare you at all, because I'm sure you all know about this stuff and this content. But it's to emphasize that a lot of times these things are accidental. So when you have these conversations with them beforehand, before the accident happens, they'll know what to do because you reached out to them before this happened. And there's a way to do it too. So I do want to bring this up a little bit. When I was talking to the kids upstairs, one of the things that was mentioned was, I'm worried that if it happens by accident, my parents will get mad at me, right? And I hear a little bit of chuckling. And I told them, I was honest, and I said, your parents only get mad at you because they care about you. They're worried about you. They're scared about what might happen. I'm sorry, guys. I went a little bit vulnerable with them, but I want them to know that it comes from a place of caring. Because sometimes as parents, when you see your kid in a bad situation, your automatic response is to jump into protection mode, right? But sometimes that protection mode pushes them a little bit further away. So the important part about bringing up these topics is making sure you bring it up in a way where your child feels absolutely 100% safe, right? So that's one important point. Okay, awesome. Another statistic, or like another statement that I want you guys to focus on, is someone might say, my child will tell me if they see inappropriate content, right? And alhamdulillah, some parents do have that connection with their kids, where if their kid sees something, they're like, oh, I saw this thing that was a little bit weird. I don't know what to make of it, and they'll have these conversations with their parents. But again, these are taboo topics in our communities, so this is not a very likely thing to happen. So there was a study that was done recently, right, by the Family and Youth Institute, where they interviewed over 300 Muslim youth, and they asked them a lot of questions in the survey. One of the questions that they asked them was, my family is open to conversations about inappropriate content, right? So their job was to say, do I agree with the statement? Do I disagree? Do I feel neutral about it? And I want to take your attention to this part right here, where 79% of these students, not students, these youth, said that they disagree or strongly disagree with this statement, right? So they feel that their family is not open to having these conversations about inappropriate content. So if they feel this way, what are the chances that they're going to bring it up themselves? Right? So this is one of those parental responsibilities that's either hard to handle because of different aspects of your child growing up or the community that you're in, but it does need to be brought up. It's an uncomfortable topic, but preparing your child is the most essential part of this. All right? And then I want to bring your attention to this part too, because you're parents, but you're also community members, right? And you interact with different kids other than your kids as well. And also if you teach or if you have any other role in the community, it's also important to know this statistic about how a lot of these youth feel that their Muslim community is not adequately addressing the issues of inappropriate content among Muslim youth. Again, it's about that 70-ish something % range. That's like really high. I've looked at a lot of research, I've looked at a lot of studies, and to find such a high percentage really tells us something, and it pulls our focus to the fact that we need to be having these conversations. And alhamdulillah, you're here, so I know you know that part. So what would you say to either your children or the youth who are afraid to lean on their families or communities? So take a second. You can talk to each other. Think about it. So getting them to think about these important things and also emphasizing, like, we really love you, that's the most important point. That's something that I really want to hammer in, is making sure that that's the beginning of the conversation, right? When you create that safe space. Sister Virginia.
So with my kid, what I've always done, and I think that works for him at least, is to just tell him and try to bring it up every time. That I'm your best friend, buddy.
I feel it's important to create and maintain a safe space at home. And that is what I feel. Not to call anybody out, we as parents, we fail to do that. We need to have that show when we are vulnerable as well. So they also need to understand being vulnerable is not something that is not acceptable. It is something that you learn from it, you grow from it. So creating safe space at home is very, very important. I rather have my kids come and talk to me than going to the teachers or their friends or going on Google or somewhere else to find the information. But that's the most important.
And I completely agree with that. One of the things that I was very adamant and made sure that I told the kids upstairs was that when I go downstairs to talk to your parents, I really want them to understand that the most important point is to create a safe space for your kid. And I know you all know that as parents. Alhamdulillah, that's one of the things that I'm sure you all try to do. But I said that to them to let them know that safe spaces are important. And I kept hammering in this point of, we talked about who could you go to in different situations if you saw inappropriate content by accident, right? And one of the most important things I was saying was that you always have to tell your parents. Make sure you tell your parents. Make sure you tell your parents. Even if they deviated from that, I reminded them of that. And I told them that one of the best things my mom told me growing up was that you may tell me something and it might make me mad, right? But I still want you to come and tell me rather than someone else telling me, or rather than you being in trouble or being in harm's way. And obviously, as a kid, I was like, oh my God, she's gonna be mad. There's gonna be a problem. But also understanding that she was going to be in my corner regardless of what the problem was very, very important. And I also told the kids upstairs that I'm sure your parents always want you to be safe first, and they always want you to come to them.
Yeah, there's a comment so to answering your question. I would say first, have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then let's build trust between one another so we can help each other and be there for each other when they need the help the most.
Absolutely, yes. Building trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most important thing. And that might be the only thing that gives you the faith and the ability to talk to your kids when you feel like you don't know what to say to them, is the fact that you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your corner. So let me talk about another fact, is that some people might say my kids are too young to know about inappropriate content. I'll talk to them about it when they get older. But sadly, when they get older is a little bit too late, because the average age of kids being exposed to this content is about 12 years old. There's a range of about 11 to 14. So as you can see, 54% of the teenagers who were surveyed said that they saw it when they were 13 years old or younger. And because of this widespread access to technology, kids as young as 2 years old know how to use phones. And I've heard so many parents say, my kids know how to use my phone better than I do, which is the reality. Kids are, mashallah, so smart. But it's also the fact that they spend time with these devices. And like I said, the accidental exposure is such a big part of it that a 2-year-old might even be playing a game and something might pop up on there. So even these numbers, although they're accurate, don't think that when my kid gets to 12, 11, 13, that's when I'll talk to them. There's always an age-appropriate way to have these conversations. Sister Hina Khan Mukhtar, who has constant conversations with parents, if you look up her name online, she mentioned that when talking to her kids about explicit content, she said it's people doing weird things online, right? So even something as simple as that, so when your kid sees it and they say, oh, that's a weird thing, maybe I should go tell my parents, right? I don't understand what's happening on this screen, right? So when you put these words in their heads, and it gives them like some kind of thing to measure it up against. So there's always an age-appropriate way to have these conversations. So I talked about the ages and some different statistics, but I want you to know that this content can really cause harm to children. Exposure at a young age can lead to poor mental health. It can lead to sexism. It can lead to objectification. So it could lead to people treating someone as an object because of what they see online. And I'm going to explain a little bit more. And most of it is because kids at this age, what they see becomes their reality. And it's because that's how their brain is working. Their brain is working in such a way that when I learn something new, I'm going to keep it in this box, and it's going to become part of my real life, right? And so if they see violence, they learn about sexism, objectification, they learn violence and other negative outcomes. And among other risks, when they view these inappropriate acts that portrays abusive and misogynistic acts, they may come to view this behavior as normal and acceptable, which is why it's important to not just have conversations about we shouldn't do these things, but also have conversations about this is what a good Islamic relationship looks like between a husband and a wife, right? Like always age appropriate. And a lot of the times kids learn these things from watching you as parents, how you interact as spouses, right? they say a lot of times that modeling is the best way for kids to learn any kind of information. They watch you, they do everything you do, and sometimes they repeat things you say. And like Dr. Yunus said earlier, and Sheikh Saad, you mentioned, do as I say, not as I do. Kids do everything. What you say, what you do, they do all of it. So again, that study, 52% of the youth that were interviewed and surveyed, they mentioned that they were exposed to violent, inappropriate content. So it's not just like mild, inappropriate content. It's violent to the point where it can change their conception of what is right and what's wrong, and a lot of times what's portrayed as wrong, but they'll start to believe that that's reality and that's right, right? So I heard Dr. Yunus talk a little bit about dopamine, so I'll get to that in a little bit. But at age 11, when the kid is getting closer to the stages of adulthood, their brain is making connections and is getting rid of things that it feels like is not important, right? It's taking in things like, this is important, this is what I need to implement in my real life, and this is what I need to keep out of my real life. And so if they're viewing this content and it becomes a part of that concrete knowledge that they have, they're going to either implement it or they're going to think that it's okay to implement this information that they got. And then at age 14, they start to have these problem-solving skills that they get. They start to think about reasoning. They start planning. They start having emotions. And in that front part of your brain, that's where a lot of your decision-making skills are. So that part is very important at that age. So sometimes when you look at kids and they make decisions, you're like, why would you do that? What led you to even do that thing? It's because that's developing for them. So with dopamine, a lot of explicit content is meant to excite people and cause a rush of dopamine. And it gets to a point when that content is viewed continuously. Not even watching the dopamine is exciting, but thinking about watching. Let's start over. Not even watching the content is exciting, but just thinking about watching the content is exciting. So if someone is thinking about, oh, I'm going to go home and I'm going to watch this video, that becomes a rush of dopamine for them. And it starts to create a craving, and then the person craves it constantly, and they want to watch it all of the time, but they don't feel fulfilled. Now, what does that sound like to you? One more time? Addiction. Absolutely, positively. Yes, addiction. And so this is when addiction can occur because of the constant usage and the constant looking at of this content. And so it causes distress or impairment in personal, family, social, educational, occupational, and other important areas of life. So I'm just going to give a quick real-life example. I only have a few minutes. But as I was doing some research, I found this online board, right, so where Muslim people can talk to each other. So there was this young man, 20 years old. He mentioned, I've been viewing inappropriate content since I was 11, 12 years old. So that's about 8, 9 years. And one of his big questions was, should I tell my dad? I know we shouldn't reveal our sins, but this feels different and I feel like I need help. Right? So this is the important part about why we need to talk to our kids before someone else talks to us, because these are the responses he got. Don't tell your dad if you ask me. Don't reveal your sins, and he also might not understand you. Whether you tell him or not is your choice, as long as you have good intentions, which is a great piece of advice. Always check your intentions. But they said, this is your test, and he might not be able to help you. And then someone else said, don't worry about telling your dad. So as parents, I want you to know that, and I'm sure you already know this information, but like you said, if you don't talk to them, someone else will talk to them. And sometimes what they tell them will push them further away from you. And don't worry, I show this to your kids as well. And I let them know, guys, you need to talk to your parents because people online are not there to help you, but your parents are always there to help you. So let me just go quickly over an emergency drill. Right, so I mentioned this name earlier. Sister Hina Khan Mukhtar talked about teaching your kids these 3 steps. First thing you do, lower your gaze if you see inappropriate content. Push it away, close the computer. And mashallah, when I talked to the kids earlier, this was a lot of the information they gave me. They were like, if you see it, swipe out, delete it, right? Put it away, put your phone away. And I was very proud of them. I'm not even their parent, and I was proud of them. And then the next thing is to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. And I told them that this is important because it cements your relationship with Allah. It reminds you that when I have problems, the first one that I go to is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it also reminds you that the enemy in our lives is the shaitan. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. And the last thing is to tell an adult what happened regardless of the time. It could be nighttime, it could be morning, it could be in the afternoon. always, always, always go and tell an adult what happened, right? So this is one way to approach these topics with your kids, is just to teach them, if you see this content, right? If you see content that you know you shouldn't be seeing, here are some steps to get through it. And always know that I'm here to talk to you about it, right? And so I'm going to send you home with some homework. One of the things that I want you to do, inshallah, if you can, is to either create your own drill or just think about a script, right? How would you talk to your child if you found out that they were exposed to this content? It's not a great thing to think about as parents, but it's important to think about. And then the last thing is, if you haven't thought about bringing it up to your kids and you haven't brought it up to your kids, think through what you might say to them. You all know your kids best, mashallah, and so you know what conversations will work best for your kids, what'll make them listen to you, and what'll make them be open with you. So just, inshallah, if you can, when you go home tomorrow, it's the weekend, so take some time, look at this, and try your best to come up with any of these, inshallah. So I wanted you to leave with 3 points. Talk to your children. Remind them that tawbah is always an option. No matter how many times we mess up in life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy goes beyond our sins. Right? As long as you're standing, as long as you're alive, you can always ask Allah for forgiveness. And then the next one is to strengthen connections between your children and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and between you and your children as well. And then here I have a QR code for resources. So I have videos, I have blogs, I have research as well. So any resources that you might need, inshallah. And this is what I'm going to leave on the screen. Jazakumullah khairan.
Jazakumullah khair. There's a question from one of the our online viewers. Children in school are also exposed to a lot of negative things, which is another huge challenge. Basically, the person's trying to say, like, what can we do in addressing that kind of conversation with our children?
It always starts with letting your kids know that they can come to you, right, if they need to talk about these issues in any way, and to let them know that they can walk away if someone brings up this content to them. So this is something that I got from the kids upstairs. One of the kids mentioned, you can always walk away from the environment if you need to walk away. And so reminding your kids that the best thing, if you can always, in any situation, if you can't leave, look away, lower your gaze, and then come and tell me. Come and talk to me as your parent. I'm here for you, right? I'm not here for myself. This is something my dad always tells me. I'm not here for myself. I'm here for you, right? So just reminding them of that is always essential.
Jazakallah. Are there any other questions? I just like to make one comment, right? I think as parents, I know I have seen this, the example that you gave of that 20-year-old person who was involved in watching explicit content from age of 11. I had one of my students that I used to teach Quran in my previous community. At the age of 9, he was exposed to very explicit content and then become addicted to it. And then where, again, all the things that especially you have mentioned and Dr. Yunus mentioned, from depression, suicidal ideation, disconnection with other friends and family members, I think it's a huge responsibility for us as parents that we have to understand that where is this content being presented through, right? Either on their laptops or on their computer, on their cell phones. Just because you got a good Thanksgiving deal on a cell phone plan, it's another $10, add a line, and my second grader or third grader, I'll just give them a phone because you find there's a value in it, I could call them. I think these are something, the decisions that parents have to make. When you're giving this device or a laptop to a very young child, you need to also understand what are the evil elements that it can come with. And we cannot always just blame our children for taking that steps. I think we as parents have to be also responsible when are we giving these devices to our children.
difficult, but I think this is one of the things, because just talk, I feel that he understands everything, and that is the reason he still want to sit here. But still it is in front of him, in front of the person. So even you don't want to do, like as adults we also do, correct? Do that. I read newspaper only. I found it is a problem only for me. Only one newspaper from my own language, my native language. But I found it is accessible. Even those news I don't need it. But used to, because I in my but I keep reading what is the Russia Ukraine going, but I'm telling about myself. So this is difficult. Any comments? I know that it's difficult.
It is very hard because it takes a lot of willpower, right? To teach your kids, to tell your kids like lower your gaze when you see something. It's still up to them to do that behavior, right? So sometimes they get so caught up in something that they don't do what they're supposed to do. It's just constantly teaching and constantly modeling to them. So even you as the parent, when you see something that's not appropriate, because it happens, it comes up everywhere, looking away and showing your child this is what you do when this happens, right? And then, of course, trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That constant dua is always so important, because when you leave your kids, you leave them to their own, right? So as a parent, that's your job. You teach your kids, and then you have to let them out into the world. So just constant dua, constant teaching, constant modeling is the best thing that I can recommend for that.
Sure.
I can add on that, just instantly, constantly saying your kids that, stop doing that. You have to follow the same rule. Like in my house, I have a 9 o'clock rules. All devices to go away after 9 o'clock. Everything, all homework has to be done by that time. Internet will be shut down at 9 o'clock. So I have to follow the rules, otherwise they will not follow the rules. So I believe on that.
Yeah, that's very important. And one of the resources that I also gave you, there's a lot of, 2 of the resources at least under the blogs, they mention step-by-step processes for parents to handle situations like these. Like examples like that, turning off the Wi-Fi at 9 p.m. or making sure you follow your own rules as parents too, is also mentioned in some of the resources as well.
Inshallah, great point. I still want everyone to go back to her original point of that drill, right? We as parents can live in this, world that, oh, not my child. Yeah, it's happening. All the statistics are there, but not my child. Just prepare ourselves. It's always best to be, safe than be sorry. So have that drill, inshallah.
It's important to set expectations when you're giving a phone to your kids, or whether it is a laptop, iPad, whatever device you choose to give. Setting that expectations with the kids is very, very important. Doesn't matter what the age of your child is. And when I gave phone to my oldest one, we had a phone contract that she cannot take phone inside her bedroom. The phone always stays in where the charging station is until the password that that me and my husband, we should know her password. All those things. It is important to set the expectations, and once they know what you are asking them, the routines and the habits, once you see that it is taking a shape, then you can take a little bit, you can step back a little bit. It's not you don't trust your kids, you do, but at the same time you're equipping them, saying what is right and what is not. And I think that is very, very important, and that comes again from creating that safe space. I'm sorry, I'm going back to that, because we as parents, we have to stay involved with our kids all the time. We need to know, we don't want to be helicopter parents either, but at the same time, we need to stay involved with our kids all the time.
Absolutely. Yes, please take that home with you. Create a safe space for your kids, because if you don't, somebody else online will, and that is a very, very huge problem, and you don't want that to happen. So may Allah protect all of your kids and the kids of your kids in the future.
Sure. Jazakumullah. I just want to from our QA board and the members who have organized this, just want to say Jazakumullah khair. May Allah reward you abundantly, mashallah. Sister Zariyat, and she is going to be part of our community all the time because this is her home. ISB is her home, mashallah. I just want everyone to know that these are young professionals who are our future leaders who will be guiding us. So may Allah preserve her, may Allah protect her, and allow the ummah to benefit from her, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, inshallah. She'll be around if someone has any other questions. We'll move on to our next topic and the next speaker, inshallah, for tonight. The third speaker is Brother Sayyid Hassan, who's also not a stranger to ISB, mashallah. He is actually a neighbor from ISB. He's a person, one of the very few people who walks to ISB for every single salah, mashallah. Very dedicated member of our community. He will be addressing the topic of resources for parents to monitoring safe content, right? His background is in IT and in security, security of internet security. So, although both of our first speakers have mainly focused on the problem, that this is the content, Dr. Yunus from both medical and psychological perspective, and Sister Zaria, a lot of content and data, and they have provided some solutions. But now for many of us as parents, whether if it comes for a device, I think one of the questions that brother asked was, kids, they have their device, and everyone's sort of used to devices these days. Our kids are in programs and educational programs that require cell phones or computers, right? So how are we cannot really possibly monitor our children 24/7 or the time that they have cell phones, right? We have addressed that we rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we try our safe practices, remind them of all the topics that we've talked about, but are there some apps or some other help online that we can install, right? That we can do some monitoring through the technology that is available. So for this topic, inshallah, we have Brother Sayyid Hassan. A brief description about Sayyid Hassan, mashallah. He is both electrical engineer and biomedical engineer. Mashallah, he works on building satellites for NASA, and is a CEO of a Fedric Engineering. He's experienced in using softwares like Oracle, ERA, SAP, and many others. Additionally, he's skilled in ensuring security, system security throughout the browser's safety measurements, mashallah. He's also, it's not in his bio, but I know, mashallah, he's also a hunter. He likes to spend time in nature. And this is something I'm pretty sure, if he's not going to address it, I would like him to address that, how he and his family spends time in nature. And that is something that we need to provide alternative options for our children to get that dopamine that both our previous speakers spoke about. So inshallah, without any further delay, I would like Brother Hassan to inshallah address the topic that he has. And the topic, again, is resources for parents for safe monitoring of their kids online.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Thank you for inviting me. What I want to do is to, I think when we talk about internet safety or any kind of safety, it's no different than I'm gonna use some of my hunting language. So basically, very first time you ever go for fishing or hunting, you have to understand the safety, because what happened if you pull the trigger when you're not supposed to pull a trigger? What happened? Either kill or get killed. And that is just the analogy of any kind of safety. When we have young kids that we are talking about safety, we have to know the issues before we create a safety. Instead of going into software, instead of going into putting some kind of VPN on it or something of that nature, or software that gives you report, I think that's a good tool. And I've done it at home, but within a few months I completely removed it altogether, because I think what it was doing, it was creating, for me, that's my personal experience, a kind of friction. And you need to let your kids know that this security, I am not there to snoop on them, but what the data we looked at earlier, the data was very clear, is the majority of the issues are accidental. You know, you are browsing through, and I'm not going to get into technology. Stuff is extremely high tech. It's how many times, especially ladies, I'm going to talk about that. You're talking to your friend or someone about shopping or special dresses. You log into YouTube, and the first thing you get, you hit by that ad. It's listening to you. It's listening to you, and that's how these algorithms are written. Because I write those algorithms. It's people like us, but I write the algorithm for different purposes. But these are the devices. They don't give you. Tell me, single company as big as Facebook, who their budget is sometimes bigger than a lot of the countries. Their salaries are, they're 150, 200,000. They give you some sort of tool for free. Nothing's for free. So what I like to discuss about that, whenever we're talking to our kids, there are a few tips. If you remember, before internet times, it doesn't matter where you live, or whether here or elsewhere, where you say, hey, don't talk to the stranger. Remember? Someone give you candy, don't take the candy. So that it's something stranger danger thing. It's always been there. So it's not like we shift the gear a bit and said, hey, listen, I know you're gonna watch something. I need to know if your text. One thing that I'm just take some time out of your busy schedule. If your child's friend wanted to meet at some coffee shop, please take them. Please take them. And then when you take them, and if they're underage, I highly recommend that one of you stay with them, and they appreciate it. You buy them and whatnot. Make sure if they're texting back and forth, they need to let you know, or you need to know who are they talking to. Extremely important, because a 12, 13-year-old child, their brain is really, they don't know the difference. I mean, how many times you probably heard of FBI, what they become. They play as some 13-year-old girl, and they try to grab these predator online. So our kids don't know that. So what we need to do is to make sure that we tell them that we don't give our addresses to anyone. We don't give we never send our pictures to anyone. If someone that we don't know send you any kind of link, that's internet security, that we just don't click on them. So these are the small things that we need to sit. Okay, now earlier topics, we're doing exactly the same thing, but this totally different aspect of it. Now a little bit more technological. Shoulder support to your child. Sit with them. It's extremely important. Now, as a parent, how are you going to take care of that? How much time? I mean, it's become. So I love nature. I like to go out. I don't know how large your families are. I have one of the large family. Mashallah, we have 7 kids. So if I can take the time out to take kids at least once a month, that's our thing, that once a month, dead winter. We don't go to beaches in summer, but we go to beaches in winter. I don't have to tell you why, but we just go. And the whole thing, we camp. We do middle of the woods in dead winter. We camp. And most of the time, this doesn't work, and I love it. So what happened when this doesn't work? They read books. They talk to you. And they get a little bit closer to you. Instead of taking long vacation, once a month, just take some time out. If nothing else, lunch, dinner, go out. Create that bond with your kids. You should be the one who know what's going on. They should come to you instead of you trying to figure out what's going on. And that's all my personal experience. When we talk about internet, information such as addresses, phone number, school name, if your kids have any kind of, like Facebook, there are a lot of filters within Facebook that you need to learn how to put those filters. Part of my job, because I have to go see clients, bunch of clients all over the place. Some of the government clients, some of them the big companies. So I have to take this training. It's called privacy training. Or some of them called FOUO, for FOUO, only for certain things. Or we have in the medical, because I work for some medical company, they have a lot of record. I have to work with that record. And those are Social Security, birthdays, and things like that. I cannot share that. But there's a training that me, as a go-through, I need the certificate before I can touch that system. You need to create that within your household. Go into this, whatever social media they're using. 12, 13, they don't know the filtration. They don't know. Put the filter on. Put a filter on. And those filters are very good. That will not show their picture, and they only show screen name, not real name. Never, ever, ever address or phone numbers. Extremely important, because how many times that you heard of that there are predators out there, and they do it, and meet them, let's meet me. And what happened? The kids start to open up to stranger, because there's no one. It's kind of strange that if I have my physician in front of me, if I have some personal issues, so hard to talk. It's just sometimes it's not comfortable. But if all of a sudden he or she, physician, sitting on the other side of the screen, and the screen is blank, sometimes I can just do it. It's just the way it is. So your child is talking to someone out there. You need to know, be very careful what to do with it. And what we do recommend, there are a lot of third-party software that what I'm going to do is to, inshallah, after this is over, I'll share a couple of these. Are a lot of my freebies, but I'm not a freebie guy. I hate free products. The reason is because I'm a software engineer. I like to get paid. So why would I create something that people just use for free? I want you to pay the subscription, pay yearly subscription, because when you pay for something, you have a little bit more control over it. You get updates, you get everything. So pay for it. It's probably lunch or dinner. They're $15, $20, and they have 3, 4, 5, 6 licenses that you can use. Sometimes kids, and this is, I've seen it, and I've heard of it, and I'm sure people will say, the kids will get threatening emails, messages, post, or text. You want to make sure you put a filter, because there's a language. What we do when we write algorithm, those language is there. And it's no longer some database, it's all AI-based. So it understands the language, even the bold letter. Remember, if you're in an office, if you write some, I remember some years ago, we had this guy who we hired him, and he didn't realize it was a caps lock on, and he just typed up the whole mail. Oh boy, when he sent the mail out, I mean, some of the guys were like, you're screaming. When you put something in a bowl, you're screaming. So AI, it's built into it. It understands these filters, understand this language, understand everything. So I want to make sure that you are, so when your child get a little bit threatened, then they tend to do, it's no different than a bully and a physical bullying. Either you give me money, or I'll tell everyone that you do this and this. No difference whatsoever. Spend time together online. I'm not saying watch a movie, but do something together. Because if you're not doing it there, we do it. We have once a week a movie night. And most of those movies are literally repeat over and over and over and over again. Something that we watched before, we know what kind of content in that movie. Bookmark your kids' favorite. So easy, they don't have to look for it. Bookmark them for them so they can easily do it. Check your credit cards. for unfamiliar because it hits. It happened to us. Okay, kids will sometime will come to you, and it's a behavior. It's oh my God! You'll see the child's behavior change. They'll snap.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
So one other tip that I would like to give, and that's probably work with younger kids, but if they're teenagers, it may not work, but you can try. Try to have a shared computer, even though computers are like now the cost of a hamburger. Or sometimes they give you for free. Try to have a desktop instead of a laptop. Get a big monitor. Get a big monitor. Open area where you're walking around and they know mommy and daddy are watching. So I think that will, if you start with younger kids, it's easier to control. But if your kids are a teenager who already have all the phones, good luck. That may or may not work. I know we have, when you have, especially girls, they like to close their room, which is their privacy, and you cannot really tell them, not to do it. But never mind. But something that the other thing that we can do is I'm going to talk about technology. It's basically, again, the software, the paid, and I will, inshallah, in about a day or two, Sir Menas, I will send you inshallah, the list of a couple of software that is recommended by the. A lot of parents are, believe it or not, sometimes we get involved with church group. Great faith-based, any faith-based community, because we have a similar. It's when it comes to faith-based community, doesn't matter who they are. We all have same issues, and it's similar solution. Just to close with this, then we make wudu, inshallah, maybe a little Q&A. Just about one of my daughter goes to Bayan Academy, and Bayan Academy had about last year school year had one of the kind of conference, online conference. What to do for the LGBTQ issue that hit us. And the starting was that it's a tsunami. It already hit us. There's nothing you can do. I don't know how you're going to do it, but it starts at home. We must change our self. We must change our policies, who we are, and also be some tech savvy. You cannot have, because a lot of our, I don't know the community here, but I can tell you, if you were, even I was just in Pakistan, and majority of the time, pretty much everyone is tech savvy, but it's I don't want to call it tech savvy, but they're not really tech savvy. Just someone flipping through and watching video does not make you tech savvy. So that's what we have to. That's what we have to become. I think I'm going to stop right here and inshallah open up for open up Q&A. And anyone has any question, and then I can definitely try to answer that, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair. Let's just so one thing I just wanted to add in, mashallah, this topic is a never-ending topic. It's a growing challenge. It's the parts of this navigating ourselves through this digital world is about 10 years ago. Although most of the cell phones were there, smartphones were there, things have evolved in just last 15 years, right? And in the next 10, 15 years, another new challenges will come through this. So no one has a perfect answer. It's likulli fannin rijal, right? There's a concept in Arabic language that for every field, there will be experts that will come in it. I briefly explained this from the story of the Prophet ﷺ. In Medina Munawwara, when Prophet made hijrah, and then he heard the companions and the people of Medina, there's a different way that how they would use to fertilize and to do the agriculture of the date palms. And they asked Prophet ﷺ, is this something that we could do as we are growing the crops? He said, I'm not an expert of this field. I'm from Mecca, and this is not my field. It's a field of you people. If you think it's right, then go for it. So that's why I'm saying, alhamdulillah, we are very grateful that this topic has been addressed. Someone just texted me right now who's watching from India. He said, thank you so much for organizing this. Alhamdulillah, again, when we talk about the online world, the social media, there's a lot of benefits that comes with it. Just like how our viewers are watching from India, mashallah. At the same time, I know people have become hafiz al-Quran through the cell phone, so through the new apps that are present. So of course, there's a lot of good that comes with it, but we wanted to just address this topic at a very initial stage so that at least we are understanding the challenges. There are some options that are given, inshallah. We also hope to have more further conversations on this topic, some more hands-on opportunities and trainings, inshallah. One quick my feedback, and I know I wanted to go back as something immediate practical thing that we could do as parents is, when we talk about whether if it's Bayan Academy, any online programs, and Sister Mehnaz also mentioned about the cell phones and taking the devices in the room, especially laptops. We should make a rule that for our children, if you can, try not to buy laptops, get desktops. And do not install them or place them in their bedrooms. It should be, if it's possible, whether it could be the kitchen, living room, where it's open. So this is where we want our children to understand they're in a learning stage right now. For them to understand Allahu Hadir, Allah is present, Allah is watching, right? So it cannot come in a 10, 12-year-old's mind right away. It takes a whole process. We have to go back and look at how we were when we were 12, 15, right? So it requires the whole process to happen, the whole developmental stages or different stages that kids go through. We are the facilitators of their upbringing. So just keep that in mind, inshallah. I would like to, again, thank all three of our speakers. Thank Brother Hassan for bringing in. We have 2 minutes, actually. Go ahead, sister.
Just one comment. Because if you have a more than like 2, 3 child, right, you can age group, all the homework is online, right? One expert is not going to work and everybody is using the security for work. Like all sitting in a one table, 6, 7 siblings studying together, all in one place, but they're just one place, space.
And that, let me attempt to say something here. Okay, the question is, if you are, we're talking about stressing a general area where our kids can use whatever technology. It's an ideal situation, but it may or may not work with everybody. So if you have an age group where you have a college student, and you have a high school, and you have an elementary, you cannot really, that's just not realistic. Your youngest one, young mind, your youngest child, make sure you start young age and work with them on that open area. If the older one if someone is 15, 16, and if they are, obviously I'm not saying that you need to let them go, but some sort of play where they may use their laptop, but I want you to stay here and do your work. So I think you're just going to have to, it's not one size fits all, unfortunately. So you're just going to have to play around, but please don't just walk away from your kids. Even though my child is very good, that's what we all think right here, but they are innocent. Like the kids are innocent. It's not the child is what we call it. One thing I remember that my upbringing, I can play all day long, but my own age group, I could not play. The moment my older brother find out, and he will find out, and somehow dad will find out that I was playing with somebody older, that's it. That's the end of it. Because they're older, they're already done it, and now they're looking for some smaller child to corrupt. It's the same thing happened here. Thank you.
Second, we have 2 more minutes. Is there any other last-minute questions?
I'm sorry, it's the way it is. How are you going to remedy that? Get close to your kids. Become a good friends. They should come to you. I'm sorry, I don't know what else to say. You cannot kick the door open anymore. Those days are long gone.
SubhanAllah. Jazakumullah khair. We'll end with a dua, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us as parents wisdom and hilm and knowledge, inshallah, so that we can raise our kids to become better than us. Inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma anta as-salam wa minka as-salam wa tabarakta ya zal jalali wal ikram. اللهم ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين وجعلنا للمتقين إماما. Oh Allah, we ask that Allah grant us and ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا, grant us and make us and our spouses and our children the coolness of our eyes, Ya Allah. وجعلنا للمتقين إماما, make us the leaders of the righteous ones, Ya Allah. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا. Allah, do not turn our hearts away after you have guided them. وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة, and grant us gift and protection and safety from your side, Ya Allah. Innaka antal wahhab, and you are the best of the giver, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, and during these challenging times that we are living in, allow us to understand the problems that our children and us are facing. At the same time, provide us with solutions so that we can navigate through these problems, Ya Allah. Please accept our du'as and reward our speakers and all those who have put time and energy to making this event possible, Ya Allah. Please accept our du'as. Allahumma taqabbal minna innaka antas sami'un alim wa tub alayna ya maulana innaka antat tawwabur rahim. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati ma yasifun wa salamun al mursalin walhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khair. Ishan Salah is in about a minute. After that, we do have some snacks outside, inshallah, in the main lobby by the cafeteria. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.